Welcome to FuzzJockRadio. Knock it off at your FuzzJockRadio. Radio. FuzzJockRadio. 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 FuzzJockRadio.
Looking forward to the Zelda podcast.
Everybody's playing that new Zelda game.
This is Zelda podcast. I want to talk about Zelda too. My favorite Zelda is Zelda podcast. That's the best Zelda game ever.
I had a Game Gear. I couldn't play Zelda because I got this knockoff system from Radio Shack. You know, it was the cheaper version of the systems of it at the time.
Everybody's playing that new Zelda game.
This is Zelda podcast. I want to talk about Zelda too.
Looking forward to the Zelda podcast.
Well, excuse me, Link. Wait, hold on. What is going on here? We're not supposed to be here, guys. We did our ultimate episode of season 8 last week, I thought. And we're here in the studio, actually on the moon. Like, how did we get here?
Why'd you tell me to come here?
I don't know. I didn't tell you to come here.
What? Who was that?
C-Dubs, did you? I didn't tell Jameis to come here. Did you tell Jameis to come here?
No, I'm not supposed to be here either. This is
going?
Strange. I thought we had this week off. What's going on?
Hold on.
Oh, hi, guys.
Hold on.
What the hell?
There's a
What are you
BREB.
doing here?
There's a BREB here. BREB.
That's right.
Wild
it's
BREB
me.
appears.
BREB,
Beloved regular.
can
Eric
you
Blake.
explain to us what is going on here? Why are you here? Why are we on the moon, in the moon studio? Like, what? How did you get us? Did you get us here? Like, what is going on?
Guys, this will all make sense in just a moment. But of course, it's me, beloved regular Eric Blake. And you guys did a whole season, and I was never back again for the first time.
Oh, that's
That's
right.
like my whole thing.
That's right. We didn't include BREB this last season. Did we, Jameis?
The powers that be have put us together for a bonus episode.
Oh,
Okay. Well,
that's cool. I guess the twins won tonight, right? Is that
Not-
what?
Oh, not a bonus sports
Embargo.
episode, James. Not a bonus sports episode.
Well, what are we gonna talk about?
Well, the thing that you guys have wanted to talk about this whole time, this whole season, Zelda.
No,
We're going to talk about Zelda.
Hey, that makes sense. I mean, if we're gonna have a special episode, it might as well talk about Zelda.
Are you guys trolling
And
me?
it,
I don't think so.
No,
not at all.
Really?
No,
This is
I
just
think
your
this is
dream
it.
come true.
It's not
Christmas
a
has
dream.
come early.
I'm
It's
starting
not-
to notice a few things.
Don't pinch me.
Oh,
I don't
no,
like to be
no,
pinched.
wait. We're on the moon, in the moon base, and I noticed that the moon is hurling towards Earth and it's trying to destroy it. That reminds me of something. And I see
Well, we've
there's
only
this
got a
mask
couple of
over
hours
here
to
that I
talk
should
about
put
it.
on. I'm wondering, maybe this is really a Zelda podcast. I'm starting to believe him.
Majora's Moon, is that what it's called?
Oh, that's Majora's Mask. That's what this mask is.
Whoa.
Oh, you know what? I have
Whoa.
a Luna in here as well, and that's a moon. I have my own Luna.
Oh my goodness! Oh, this is really a Zelda podcast.
This is, and yeah,
You guys do this
Yeah, why
all
not?
for me?
and for C-Dubs.
Oh, okay.
And for contractual obligation.
Yeah.
All for me.
And not for Nintendo. This is not
No.
sponsored. This is. Just want to put that out there right away. This is
Oh, we
not a
should say
sponsored
that early.
podcast.
This is for historical purposes only.
Historical.
Now that we have the
Yep.
legal ramifications out of the way, why don't we introduce ourselves?
Oh.
I, of course, have already introduced myself, but in case you
Hold on,
forgot,
hold
beloved
on.
regular Eric Blake, here again for the first time.
There was something else I was gonna say. Like, oh man. Oh. I'm fuzzy and I'm confused.
Okay.
Okay, and then
I'm Jameis.
Who's this? Okay,
Jameis,
Okay.
I'm a Nintendo
Yeah, and then
enthusiast and Zelda
Who's that
fan.
over there in California?
I'm actually in Hyrule, So this is C-dubs in Hyrule.
Okay, so at least we have introductions done.
Yeah.
We all know who each
who are you?
Oh, I said I'm fuzzy and I'm confused.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
Now, technically,
we usually will go into how our week was. We probably should do that, right? Why are you doing the no sign?
that's in our contracts. That's FuzzJock exclusive material.
Oh, that's right.
We can't. That's like our best bits. We can't use that on this show.
Okay, so we can't.
yeah, I wasn't gonna bring it up in case I could trick you into that extra material, but I'm not.
I got the
I'm not
contract in front of me.
privileged
Well, that's all
for that
right.
content.
There's a lot of Zelda to talk about,
That's
especially
a very storied franchise for decades old.
yeah.
So
So
that is a lot of Zelda.
do you want to what do you want to do?
I mean,
Since we
there's been a big part of video games, and you guys even played any Zelda?
Yeah, let's figure out
You got your.
Have you played any Zelda, J-Mas?
I have played a fair amount of Zelda.
Sorry.
Okay.
And I've played a lot of the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, like old Zelda. I actually had a little trouble getting into 3D Zelda right away.
Okay.
So, some of that was not necessarily my jam right away.
What was the first 3D Zelda?
That was Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah, on the 64.
So that transition I felt was a little awkward for me at the time, being a old school Zelda fan. But I've played a lot of modern Zelda.
The 64 brought in a lot of 3D games. The 3D realm almost. They ushered in the 3D realm.
Absolutely.
Pretty much, right? I mean, this is not a video game podcast.
No, this is.
Specifically Zelda, though.
I was going to say we don't want to get too much into the history and tangents of video game history. We just, because this is more of a Zelda podcast, right?
Yeah, but that was the thing that happened to Zelda.
So you're really knowledgeable, is what you would say, James.
I've got I feel pretty familiar with a lot of lore. And at least with games I haven't played, I feel familiar with a lot of what's going on. Maybe not a lot of the handhelds.
Okay.
But
because there's a lot of Zelda games out there.
there's a lot.
Do we know how many Zelda games are out there off the top of our heads? Otherwise,
Should have brought my encyclopedia with me.
AI Studio. The Moonbase has an AI here. So if the Moonbase AI can figure out how many Zelda games
over
there
30.
are by the time that we
Beloved regular AI is faster than Moonbase AI. 19 entries in the Zelda franchise.
What? Only 19?
only 19 between.
Only 19. That's crazy. And when did I get this AI installed?
I don't know. Okay, so BREB.
Yes, sir.
How much Zelda do you know? Do you know all the stuff, or do you know just a little bit?
It is
what's
the
knowledgeable
game. It's the game franchise I have the most knowledge in, I would say. It's the one that it's the Nintendo franchise that grabbed me, and I have not played a lot of the first two because the first one came out the year I was born, and I was still too young for the second one.
Yeah, super
But
old.
Link to the Past, I played to absolute death, and still play it at least once every couple of years.
Oh, same.
Classic.
That's
Just
that's
for the zen focus of playing it again.
That's a good entry.
I've played pretty much all of them to completion, even the ones that I really did not like.
and the Game Boy Advance ones?
Yes.
You had to
Yes.
think about that.
The only entries that I haven't gone all the way through are two of the Game Boy ones, the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. And Four Swords Adventure on GameCube. Which I didn't
played Minish
realize
Cap,
was
though.
a single player. Oh, I've played Minish Cap a whole bunch, and I just replayed it when it dropped on the Switch recently. But
Nice.
C-Dubs,
that one
what
gets
is
overlooked.
your-
Yeah, C-Dubs.
I enjoy that one.
Where are you at on the Zelda knowledge, franchise Zelda knowledge?
So
I like this. This
He
is
wants
good.
to talk about Zelda too.
Yeah.
I'm also a very big fan of Zelda. In fact, it's my favorite franchise of video game. Period.
Oh, wow.
I'm not as well versed in the modern Zeldas,
Okay.
but I know a lot about the original Zeldas, probably leading up into the early 3D versions. So
Okay.
I've played a lot of Zelda also, and I have a lot of knowledge, especially about a specific Zelda, Link's Awakening, my
Okay.
absolute favorite and one of the all-time best video games ever created.
Okay.
Hands
Yeah.
down.
What is the most recent Zelda that you've played? That since you said that you are not really that in depth into the newest ones.
What's the one that was on GameCube?
Wind Waker.
Wind
Yeah.
Waker. That's the last one I played a lot of.
That one was at. That was when we were. That one
Cell
came out
shaded.
when we were hanging out at Josh's. Remember that guy Josh? He was in the band with you, called the Sailbiters.
I don't remember having no, I'm just kidding.
That might have been Skyward Sword.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
Skyward Sword.
That
I
was
think, for
Skyward
that
Sword.
one.
Was that afterwards?
I was living at Josh's place when Skyward Sword came out.
Okay.
I had never owned a Wii, but I was like, I'm not going to miss a Zelda. So I bought a controller and bought the game and just borrowed someone's Wii. And yeah,
Was that
Because those I've
was
only
that-
watched. I've never played those.
Is that after the one that C-Dubs was talking about?
Yes.
a ways after, yeah.
They're like, oh, you guys nod.
Yes.
And then, boy, I gotta say
that
yes.
We're letting you finish.
that one was out when they still used to set up game displays at stores.
And that was on the which console?
GameCube.
That was the GameCube, and that was the first shell shade Zelda.
It was the cell shaded one.
Not the cell shaded. There was multiple cell shaded. Was
Well,
there not?
It was the first. It was the first because it was also Chibi Link.
Yes,
is like
they
a-
call
I don't know
him.
what
They
that
call
means.
this iteration Toon Link
Oh, the
because
Toon
of
Link.
Toon
the
Link,
cartoon
yes.
style, and they reprised this a particular Link in a couple 3DS games.
And it's not just like Toon, but isn't Link like a kid as well? He's like a kid Toon, or is because he's not adult Link?
No,
Is that
he is a kid canon to the story of Wind Waker. Yes.
Okay. And that was cell shaded cartoon style,
Yeah.
and that's called a Quibi Link. Is that what you said?
I called him Chibi.
Chibi is that?
That's like a Japanese cartoon version of something. Like when it's
okay.
a cutesy kitty version of something. That's
That
called
usually
Chibi.
has a large head equal to the rest of its body.
And that was the first one that was like cell shaded,
Yeah.
or like a,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a cartoon. Okay.
Yep,
And-
it was
and
a big
then
deal because there was a lot of people who didn't like it right away.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get kind of
Yep.
some ducks in a row here.
Let's do it.
The
Get 'em
and
in a row.
then the first 3D one was Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time for
Ocarina of
64.
I'm really, and I'm sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing that word. I can never ever remember it. I do try my hardest. Just so you all know, I do try, but I always forget. Ocarina.
Well, Fuzzy, we haven't asked you yet, Fuzzy. What is your breadth of knowledge with the Zelda series?
I would say I played. Well, first off,
Yeah.
the intro of this makes it sound like I bought a Game Gear, so I wasn't. And then the Game Gear was the knockoff version of a Nintendo, and that kind of made me sound like I didn't know what I was talking about. It was the Master System that I bought, or that I didn't buy either. My parents bought them, right?
Yes,
But I was a Sega.
that was mixed up for comedic effect. Of course.
I know, but I want to make sure to set.
This
the
is a serious podcast.
I want to
This is a
set the
serious
record straight,
podcast.
guys. Come on, Come
I'll
on.
come clean.
Come
I
on.
cut him up for comedic effect.
Yeah, and I'm with comedic effect saying that I want to just make sure everything is on board here. I want to I want to know things.
Your
So
Zelda knowledge.
I was a Sega kid.
Sega.
Yeah,
A lot of cool stuff there too.
yeah. And then my friend, what's his name in this episode or in the special episodes?
Which one?
That one that.
The
He's
expert.
the expert. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
what's his name?
knowledgeable Andrew.
It's not. But it's not.
No, but it's not in
we
this. It
can't
would be,
say that because of
yeah.
royalty
Sage?
rights.
Andrew the Sage?
Andrew the Sage.
Andrew the Sage
Drew
of
the
Knowledge?
Sage. Sage the Drew.
Andrew the Sage. Their family had a Super Nintendo, and so I would watch them and was very jealous of them playing Link to the Past. You know,
Yeah, it's so
that
beautiful.
seemed like a really fun game. And then, during that time, I was jealous of kids with Nintendos and stuff. So then I ended up getting myself a 64.
Oh, wow.
Well, I didn't buy it. My parents, I think it was a Santa present actually.
Yeah.
And they came with the GoldenEye and the 4 controllers. So there was also the family of 5 playing GoldenEye, and then eventually I got Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
Or is that right?
Ocarina.
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 Ocarina, like macaroni.
Yeah, like octopus.
Ocarina of Time. I got that.
Macaroni of Time.
I got that for the 64.
Macaroni.
Right? And then that taught me not to go to church, and then got me to realize that I don't believe in things. So
Yay!
So then since then I didn't play any of the cell shaded ones for some reason. Then I played a bunch of the Breath of the Wild. Was that after the cell shaded ones of the Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, that would be like modern Zelda.
Didn't play any of the Game Boy ones.
Yeah.
I know the story of Link and Zelda and Ganon. Right? I'm not exactly sure how all the games connect together or not, and then we'll probably get to that in the midst of this podcast.
Oh yeah.
We can talk about that, right? So yeah, that's where a fan, an off and on fan, if you will. Like maybe the next system, I won't end up playing the next Zelda. No, I would definitely play the next Zeldas. Like Tears of the Kingdom, I'm really into. It's really good. So,
Nice.
I'm gonna
so
keep playing
there I am.
Zelda. That's for sure.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's I don't think that's terribly uncommon.
So I think that since the new Tears of the Kingdom, or the Tears of the Kingdom is the newest game, and it just came out about a month ago, I want to put out there that since it's been out there for a month, the rest of the podcast will possibly and most likely and will have some spoilers in it, depending on where you are in Tears of the Kingdom. And I'm just saying this because I think that since it being the newest Zelda, maybe we should hone in on our discussion on Tears of the Kingdom. With the breadth of the franchise,
The Wild.
Yeah.
and we're not going to just specifically just talk Tears of the Kingdom, but have that kind of as the main focal point, with the franchise being able to be tangents of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I just want to kind of frame for the audience where we're going to go with this
that
episode,
was good.
right?
Yeah.
And it is the game that is sort of taking over the podcast earlier in the season. So yeah, this is really a good chance for
Yeah,
us
I
all
suppose,
to talk about this game we've been spending so much time on.
So if you want to find out how this game, or how we led up to this episode, and you don't want spoilers right now, turn this off right now and listen back to all the other episodes of FuzzJockRadio.
Yeah, this is fine.
And then while you're playing Breath of the Wild,
I'll talk about the twins while you play
in
and
Tears of the
finish
Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Finish Tears of the Kingdom, and then come back after you listen to all the FuzzJockRadio episodes and played Tears of the Kingdom. Come back and listen to this episode, and agree with us on what we're talking about.
And then you become a FuzzJocker, listening to the FuzzJock, and then for this one you be a Zeldite. That's what we're calling our fans tonight, Zeldites.
Okay. So, right off the bat, I think we should kind of talk about maybe the reception of this game, or maybe how it's different than the other games, or
Maybe like a first impression.
yeah,
mean, I remember-
how our first impressions are.
Yeah.
I remember excited for this game to come out, really hyped for it, playing it for the first few times, seeing new things, and really, really eager to ask other friends that I knew were excited. Like, oh man, what did you think? First impressions. So like, yeah, that was something I was really excited to ask other friends about early in playing this game. So
Yeah. So like, what were our first impressions?
first impressions.
How were,
I remember like the first when I sat down and got to play my first 2 to 4 hours first session, and so Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel to Breath of the Wild, the Smash Switch success. They have like
which that game
erased
came out at the very
the-
begining of the
Yes, that
Switch's
was a
life, right?
Switch launch title.
It came out the same day as the Switch.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Now
that
this game was
5
originally
years ago.
planned to be DLC, but they realized the tools they were making were so cool they could just wipe the old tools off the board, make a whole new game, and make it super deep in a very literal way.
Did I hear you say
Wow.
that the Tears of the Kingdom was supposed to be a DLC for Breath of the Wild?
Yep. And then they just kept developing it, and they were like, "This is super duper cool. We can make this a sequel." And so my first impression after I'd heard all of this, it's going to be the same map, but there's going to be some changes. Not really getting a whole lot of like gameplay hints until I started really playing with it. But once I was maybe even less than 2 hours in, I was just like, by God, they did it. That was my first impression. They did it. They took this game using the same map and like a lot of assets, and it's a completely different experience, and it's so rich and cool.
Okay. JMS?
A lot of my first impression really reflected that in a way, and like because I played a lot of Breath of the Wild, and that was a game that immediately shot not just like favorite in a franchise, but like that was my favorite video game. That was a I mean, I just have monumental things to say about that game. So like it felt like it didn't even matter how high of a bar I had, that they made a good sequel of it. And I was almost dumbfounded that I had difficult times finding things to criticize or be like not agree with maybe some design choices, but it was hard, and just fully enamored in how much was new and different about old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
C-Dubs?
My first impression of it was that I have not played it.
Okay.
But my impression of the game coming out was I did know that they were using the same, basic principle or world for the previous one, and just did a whole new game with it. So I thought
Sure.
that was a cool concept, because I mean Zelda has a lot of carryover in certain aspects. So it's neat to see them do it kind of, I don't know, they changed like the opposite thing. They kept the place the same and changed all the everything else. So
Sure.
it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did everybody go in clean slate into this game, not knowing, like not looking at previews and gameplay before the game came out, or did you look into depth of what the game's going to be about?
I feel like I kept myself pretty safe in avoiding very many spoilers at all, and I think I didn't even watch the final trailer of the game. I was just ready to jump in.
The spoilers, as in not knowing anything at all, what you're going into.
Yeah,
Okay.
as in not even like all the preview trailer.
Yeah, that's what I'm
like,
wondering.
I watched a couple, the
So,
first two. and that
Totally
was
clean
about it.
slate for you.
Yeah.
And Eric?
Pretty clean slate. I watched the first trailer, which was more about story and atmosphere. And then I avoided gameplay trailers, but I listened to video game podcasts. So from time to time, I did hear about like the fusion power, for instance. And I was like, oh, that's going to be cool. But I'm using it in different ways than the first little thing that they showed people in a gameplay trailer. So I kept myself pretty pretty blank slate. And I mean, there's a lot of surprises in this game. Even if they had done a couple hours gameplay footage, they wouldn't have been able to cover, 90% of what else is out there.
Sure. For me, I when I noticed that this is probably going to be a pretty special game, I just went not going to watch any trailers. I went full clean slate. I decided, I think I watched maybe the first trailer, and then my first impressions when I got into it, like at first, like knowing that they were going to be using the same map and that they were going to be adding new mechanics that were based off of what the players were doing in Breath of the Wild to break the game in Breath of the Wild. Like, it sounded like, from what I heard, was that they were going to use a lot of mechanics that came out of people breaking the previous game.
Like watching speedrunners.
Yeah, and it just sounded like there was going to be a lot of the same, and then also being on a 5-year-old console really gave me a lot of concern.
Yeah.
So I went into this game really not having the highest. I knew it was going to be a Zelda game, and I knew it's a Nintendo Zelda game, and they always provide good gameplay, good stuff.
Good effort put into the IP.
But it was a little like, oh man, a little worrisome, right? And then I started playing it, and within the first couple moments, like right when you jump off the tutorial island, it really started, and then possibly getting the first first mechanic or whatever, I don't even know. I just it started really starting to sink in that this is a very special game, and that there's a lot in it. It just feels like it's big and full of stuff,
It's immense.
Yeah. And like the mechanics that they started introducing were way more in depth than the stuff that they had in Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah. So let's what are our abilities in Breath of the Wild? You get remote bombs.
Okay.
And you get magnesis for being able to control metal things. You get a stasis to freeze objects and almost hit them and build them up with kinetic energy, which can be upgraded to use on enemies. So you can kind of lock them in place in time. And cryonis, which allows you to freeze, or you can make ice pedestals out of water.
Okay.
Is that it?
So these are all good, and the thing to remember is that these are all good puzzle-solving abilities. So they're really focused on, they're very, very specific, what their limitations are, and they are pretty limited. Even people started to break them mechanically, but they're sort of one-trick pony abilities, and when you start to do the puzzle solving, you see how they're intended to be used in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Now, when we get into Tears of the Kingdom,
Now.
our new abilities are more about problem solving,
Oh, yes.
or
That's what you just
puzzle
said.
solving.
Yeah.
Well,
Instead
but
of-
I'm guessing it means that there's more. Are there more ways to solve the problem? Or is that what you're saying with the
Well,
mechanics?
okay, so
or-
basically, all the stuff that was in Breath of the Wild is in Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe not as a specifically ability, but in some type of form or fashion. Like as in the time bombs, they're not. You can't do that specifically as an ability, but you can get those as this thing called a zonite device and use time bombs through that. So they added a bunch of more abilities like the ones that are in Breath of the Wild, and then also added these things called zonite devices that add even more things.
There's a lot of things.
There's a
And
lot of
There's
things.
a lot of
map.
things.
Like
There's
these,
a lot of things, a lot of maps.
What are some?
like the zonite devices, it would include a time bomb, a gliding plane, a fan, a
Wheels, all sorts of wheels, and various shocking and fire and ice shooting devices, some beam weapons. You got a
Yeah, the
cannon, you got-
majority are like traversal, traversal oriented in their traversal or like attack oriented in their use. You know, just machines to get you places, machines to help you attack. But they goes there's some really interesting Zonite devices that really stand out. I want to talk about two MVPs, I believe, being the stabilizer, which
stabilizer.
is stabilizer and the post.
What do you
Or
mean
the
by the
stake.
stabilizer and the post?
These are two specific Zonite devices. A stabilizer essentially just keeps anything it's attached to upright.
Okay.
So like a level. And a stake is like a stake that can be
That you can put a stake, like a fence stake.
yeah, and you can have a stake like in a ground or in a wall and then attach to that stake. It doesn't sound that cool, does it? It's just a stake. It's a stick.
Tell us
They
why it's
are
cool.
so cool, though.
Why is it cool?
The stabilizer was this thing. The stabilizer, like, defines a bottom, and in the physics of the game, keeps something aligned with that bottom. And it's so cool what you can do with it. But even just making something really janky stay upright. So it looks goofy as hell, but because of the stabilizer, it's
Okay.
like, nope, this is totally stable. This works.
So
think
what are you
I
building?
think-
Like, what are some of your
Okay,
obstacles?
I was gonna say I think we have to back up a bit.
Yeah, I need some examples.
What can't you build?
Well, okay,
Tell me something.
Let's go back a bit.
Yeah.
One of the mechanics in this new Breath of the Wild is that you can build things. You can like not just like in Minecraft, like where you build like a house, but you can build different device like a car. You can build a car. You can build a plane. You can build boats. You can build bigger weapons. You can build right.
Yes. When we never really fleshed this out too much, but in regards to our new abilities, the two of them are Ultra Hand and Fuse. Ultra Hand is used to just attach things to each other for
like a-
building,
so
like
like a plank?
crafting or Minecraft.
Well, like there's a plank and a wheel, so you can take that plank and you can attach it to the wheel,
Yeah.
and you can take another wheel and attach it to the plank, and then you can put another wheel onto that plank and another wheel onto that plank, and then now you have a 4-wheel device that you can put a steering wheel onto, and then put a little fan on the back of it, and then you can drive around a little cart.
Well, and even to take it before even introducing the Zonai devices, it can be as simple as putting logs together and you have a raft.
Okay.
Attaching a sail to it.
Like fuse? Is that what the fuse is
That's
also for?
Ultra Hand
fusion?
is, and Fuse is a similar thing, but specifically used for your weapons and shield and arrows.
So any items that are littered on the ground, like a goblin's horn or an enemy's eye, you can
The noble rock.
or a
A
rock.
rock on the ground.
You can connect that to your sword, and now you have a sword with a rock attached to the end of it, which makes it more
like-
powerful,
I like that
right?
because
Yep.
they originally didn't want you to ever unequip your sword. So it's interesting that now you can equip anything to it, and you can mess around with all sorts of stuff because the game wanted to be very specific to. He always has a sword.
Well,
He's the hero.
as in games that you know about, right?
In the
'Cause
originals,
as
yes.
in with the Breath of the Wild, it came into it changed that where the weapons that you use break, so you have to always get a different weapon.
Oh man.
And so then this adds on to the durability of a weapon, but then those the weapons still break, but it makes it feel like it doesn't matter because you have another combination of weapons that you can make and use. And it makes you, and so like that's where something that we can get into like some of the controversies of the changes of different Zeldas and stuff as well.
Yeah, Fuse is really good and stands out as almost an answer to the criticisms of our weapons breaking.
Okay.
Yeah, they made two really big changes to address that. Fusing helps the weapons last longer, and something else.
Because
But,
people did
do we
not
want to talk
like
about?
people did not like the fact that that it
The
changed
roads.
from what C-Dubs knows to weapon Link always having a different weapon. People hated that when that happened in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I feel that's generally more people dislike that than like that.
Yeah, and then, so then their compromise for this new Zelda is that they put the fuse together.
Dude. Yeah, and it just creates almost it feels like just a huge breadth of options. And more often than not, I'm running around with these weapons that I wish broke quicker because I'm trying to do more new.
I
want to
get more weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also increased how many weapons there are in general, and that is the other thing that really addressed that issue from Breath of the Wild, because there's no more scarcity. You're tripping over weapons, and then you can make these really powerful combos that are really fun to use. So, should we talk about the other powers
Well,
in the game?
Before
in
we
the
do
new
that, I just
one.
wanted to point out one thing quick. So you guys know that the option of what this has grown into, what you guys are talking about, was born in Link's Awakening.
What?
It was
No,
the
really?
first game you could unequip the sword. And because they had allowed them to have the options of putting weapons together in a better process than they originally wanted.
That's right. Now that I think about it, you're right. That is the
Because it
first
wasn't
Zelda that you can unequip a sword.
the reason for that was one of the guys who was making the director for Link to the Past wanted to do it for that game. And back to the thing I was arguing, the guy who I can't remember his name, who's the mastermind behind Zelda, the main guy who's been running all the games,
Mr. Zeldaman.
Mr. Zeldaman, whatever. He wouldn't let him because of the exact idea that Link always had to have his sword as the hero. He must always have the sword. And that's why they didn't want that. But because, again, Link's Awakening was supposed to be not even made, they were just fucking around doing stuff. And they were like, let's try all the stuff we couldn't do in the last one. And then that's where a lot of that came from. But yes, so the idea that you can change your weapons and not just have a sword comes from Link's Awakening.
Interesting.
So cool.
That's cool.
So that's my little tidbit I get to add. I'm going to keep adding little tidbits about Link's Awakening
Sure.
throughout this. But yeah, so that's when I had. But you were saying it was more of the
Let's-
option. Yeah.
The other Tears of the Kingdom powers. So we talked about Ultra Hand, which is for building stuff. There's also an upgrade to that ability, which lets you save favorites from your history. So I finally perfected a vehicle with a certain type of axle. It lets me save that, and then I can either gather the parts and it'll build it from memory, or I can spend a resource and it'll generate those parts and build it from memory at the same time.
So
Then
you
there's
don't
the
have to
fusion.
keep. So you don't have
yeah.
to keep building it every single time. When you
And
when you want.
that's heavily attached to your Ultra Hand.
Yeah,
It's like a blueprint.
upgrade.
Yeah.
And you do learn schematics that the game has pre-generated. Some of them are goofy, really goofy, and some of them are super, super useful. So they've done a good job with that. I like that system.
Oh, so the game has blueprints as well.
Like plans for
for the
a lot of these devices for building.
Okay, so you don't have to come up with things on your own.
Not all the time.
So
The other powers.
I was a little surprised by these other powers when we get into this here. The other two powers are they didn't seem they just seemed out of left field compared to the building and fusing and things. The next one you get is Ascend, the ability to rise just like straight up through the ceiling. And I'm like, okay. I mean,
So if there's something above you within about like 8 feet or so,
Yeah.
you pop this ability and it tells you whether or not there's like a stable place for you to emerge, and then you shoot up through the floor. And the interesting thing about this ability is that, kind of like how this game was started as DLC to talk about people breaking the game, this ability was a dev tool. Because they were like, this is a game with a ton of climbing. Ooh, I could skip some of that if I just write this little code that lets me just pop up through, a surface. And then they were like, he's kind of doing the swimming thing. We could do that. This would look kind of cool. Why don't we just make this a mechanic? This is really, really fun and like is a totally different way, another way to traverse the world that feels really cool.
It feels good too. Like it feels solid when he's going through the rock, and then so Link will be in a cave area.
yeah, a lot of caves.
And there are a lot of caves. And so you're like, well, I don't want to go all the way back through the cave to get back to the entrance. There's a spot in the ceiling that is green, which means it's a stable spot to go through. So I'll just go through the ceiling, and the animation is him like swimming through the rock, kind of, and like, magical stuff. And then he pops up halfway out of the ground, and he looks around. And he's like, okay, look, coast is clear of enemies, and you'll pop up, or you have the option to go back down. And then all of a sudden you're on top of the cave, and it's great because it adds to different secrets and additions to the game where they can add different treasure chests and stuff that you might not know where they are, or like a shrine might be only available by going through a ceiling of a cave type of thing too. So it's a neat. It's out of the left field. It's
I was surprised by it.
It's like, oh, well,
And
it almost feels
was there
like
another one you
cheating.
said? No, sorry.
Yep, and then there's another one.
Recall, and this like reminds me of the stasis where you're able to like freeze an object in time. But what this one does is reverses an object in time, so it will be in motion.
So like something falls out of like you're running through the field, and something falls out of the sky, which. Why would something fall out of the sky? We'll talk about that here with the map.
Let's get to that.
But
It's kind of like
the sky, you can jump on the thing, and then do the what's it called? Recall, and then the object will go back up into the sky with you on top of it.
Well, now this is I just want to touch that it's introduced to you with these cogs with platforms that are just turning a direction, and you need them to turn the other direction. A really, really basic, problem puzzle here. But this ability blows my mind as far as programming is concerned, more than anything else in this. I mean, some of the building I've seen is pretty crazy and wild, but the recall is actually very impressive.
Okay.
And it's
At
so
first, I
fun
thought you were
because-
talking like a Prince of Persia type time reverse, but this is very different. Okay.
Yeah. No. You.
Yes, 'cause
rewind the
just one
time of
object
Just one
reverses.
object.
Yeah.
Yep. So like,
But it's
really
really handy.
Like
They
your-
start you thinking about like these big cogs with it, and that's the first thing you approach. But then you realize it can be done on small stuff. So like, once you realize that, anytime an enemy throws an item at you, you just stop it in time and throw it right back at them. It's like no one can throw anything at me anymore. Recall.
I do recall.
Yeah. And just like combining powers. I don't know if I want to touch on that yet, but
Well, again, that's great. They go back to the combining weapons, but now it's powers. I like that they're crossing everything back over.
yeah, and there are a lot of puzzles that do require you to think, in coordinating these different powers with each other in a lot of ways. But, just picking one object in one asset in the entire game and being able to like have a certain amount of memory of literally every object's like past 30 seconds.
That's amazing.
And it can just like pick that one object out and reverse that one while continuing everything else normally.
It's weird.
Man, the code in
It's
that
really
has got to
weird.
be intense.
It's wild to think about.
It's weird. So I mentioned you can. Are we? Did we get through all the mechanics? The new mechanics.
That's all the new
kinda?
powers.
The new
Yep,
powers.
so we're building, fusing, going up through the ceiling, and reversing things in time.
Yep. And so I mentioned with the reversing things in time one is that you can get onto a rock that fell out of the sky and reverse it and then go up into the sky with it. And the reason why you want to do that is because there's land up on top in the sky, floating in the sky. And so the map that I was worried about being reused, they actually, they tripled it, not just doubled it. Like you can go up into the sky and there's a map, and then you can also go into the ground and there's a map. And so there's now 3 maps of
3 maps of Breath of the Wild.
They've added a
of
lot
this
of
game.
depth. And I mean, and
It's literally called
they
the Depths.
also they took the overworld, and the caves we mentioned earlier are new. They were not in Breath of the Wild. So they took the existing overworld and dug all these holes into it, and also put an entire map under that entire map.
Yeah.
and spotted
It's
the
so big.
sky with some floating islands. which the floating sky islands was touted, I believe, a lot in some very early promotion in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes, it
like
was.
that was one of the things that I knew to expect.
The beginning of the game, you start in the sky.
Yes, and the game starts you there. So there's not much surprise. It's on the cover art.
Because in the storyline, should we go to start getting into the storyline a bit? Like we can just keep talking free flow, I suppose. Like in the storyline,
This is probably a good time.
the reason why you start in the sky in the storyline is because everything kind of like exploded after Breath of the Wild and went up into the air, basically. Like Ganon came back, or a version of Ganon came back in this new Tears of the Kingdom, and everything, all the land in Hyrule like exploded upwards, and so like parts.
The Great Upheaval.
Yeah, it's called a Great Upheaval.
Yes, in Breath of the Wild, this mimics a lot of Breath of the Wild. In that one, it's the calamity taking over things, and this one begins with the upheaval. As we're exploring underneath Hyrule Castle, we discover the mummy of the Demon King.
Yep. And then, and then everything explodes.
He wakes up. He's not happy. He hurts Link, and
Link loses his arm.
Link, loses his arm. His Master Sword is all decayed, and Zelda just kind of vanishes in a blip.
No.
And then Link wakes up in the sky on one of the islands and finds out that there's beings that have been living in this whole world for a long time. Like some ancient people that have been living in the sky, right? Kinda.
Well, none of them are left. Only their little robots remain.
Oh,
And they kind of wake you up and start to feel you along the story.
Okay. And so then you're running around in the sky, and then you eventually dive down into Hyrule, and then eventually you go through some different quests, and you find out that there's depths where there's it's like the
Where all the land had like
like the nether
exploded
of
up,
Minecraft.
it left just these huge craters. I mean, not even just craters, like they just go all chasms. Yeah, that's what they are.
Wow.
Yeah. Into the
That's good. That makes total sense. So that's a great reason to have that in both sides.
And so
That's
then
really
you can Yeah, right. And so you can dive from the top all the way through through Hyrule, through the chasm, all the way down to the ground, into the Nether. Instead of like in Minecraft where you have to go through a portal and then they load the Nether, you can actually go to the Nether, but it's called the depths, right? Mm-hmm. Right, guys.
And
right?
you jump down there, and it is dark.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Something we haven't mentioned yet. It does all of this, and it loads faster than Breath of the Wild. That has also blown me away. This game loads so fast.
Once it's
but looks
loaded,
so
there's no. Are there loading? Yeah, there are loading screens.
just when you do that fast travel, but that is faster than it used to be. It's crazy.
If you don't do fast travel, there is no loading screen, is there?
Oh yeah, no, not at all.
No, there's no loading screen as you go between the 3 layers of the map.
Yeah.
You can
I didn't
you can
ever thought of
distinguish like going from the sky to the land by like seeing cloud cover, and then it just like eventually dissipates and you see the land clear. And when you're jumping through a chasm, it's just a dark hole until it's not a dark hole, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it does it all.
So
God, it's huge.
how?
Huge.
Okay, so with different. Wow, that was good. That was a good.
Yeah, there's fireworks happening.
With the different changes of different Zelda franchises, Zelda going from 2D to 3D, there was big
Well, I had mentioned like that was weird for me, and I didn't. Yeah, that as my fandom with the franchise went, that was a weird thing.
Well, I mean, I think
Which I've come back to.
It was sorry.
And I have better opinions about those games than I did then, certainly. But yeah, it was
a big change then.
A big change, exactly.
Okay. So there's a lot of video games that have sequels, right? And I'm gonna just change it up to how I'm trying to say this, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of video games out there that have sequels that are usually stick to how the first one was, and will add on to that and not really
Like a linear
change-
story.
and they won't change the formula of the gameplay and the mechanics of the gameplay or how the game is. They stick to it, and then there's other sequels and histories of video games that do change things up, and Zelda's kind of one of those type of games where they had a great thing going with the old school Zeldas, and then they went to 3D and added mechanics that people never would have thought of, and that's part of new technology being able to do that. But it does
Like being
also,
able to play the ocarina.
yeah, why would
Like
you
with the
want to
notes.
why would you want to play a song in Zelda,
I'm gonna put a flute in a game.
And then with the change from those Zeldas to Breath of the Wild, they ditched a lot of old mechanics and added new mechanics and changed the whole style, and it sometimes leaves gamers in the lurch of feeling like, well, they're like, I like the way my game was,
Yeah.
who are you to change the style of my game? How with the changes of this game from because Breath of the Wild had a lot of controversy, did they make up for those? Do you think? Like how what do you? I guess I don't know what I'm trying to go here with all the long-winded thing. But there's controversies, and how's the reception of this game? What how?
I've got to be honest that I don't know that I have necessarily caught a lot of reception on this game because I'm too busy playing it. But like I recall, like I can say this is anecdotal, but a colleague I had before that was a big fan of Kind of classic Zelda formula of get the three things, pull the Master Sword, do the dungeons. There's 7 of them. Then you fight Ganon. Rinse and repeat, right? And did not like Breath of the Wild for not having dungeons or having a linear path or guided story. And I believe I've seen them, when you can see your friends logging in to play a game. I feel like I've seen them logging in to play Tears of the Kingdom a lot more.
Yeah.
And so, but
Eric?
Huh?
that's what I got.
Yeah. Eric, what do you like? Do you think that is it fair for people to have those hard opinions about the changes in like sequels of video games, and or is it something that people like should expect, like with the changing of technology and things like that? And also, I think we also should think about like a question that we should answer too at some point is, do you think that they should have waited for the next system for the next Zelda, or do you think that there's going to be a remaster of this game with the new system coming at some point? I mean, they didn't announce anything, but like this.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that after.
We're just talking about it.
reception.
Well, yeah, that's.
Yep. Sorry.
I'm asking Eric and all of us right now.
I guess I've heard nothing but good reviews from this one so far. I only knew a few people who really couldn't get down with Breath of the Wild, and some of that came down to the weapon system. I think they addressed that really well. Haven't heard anybody really complain, and the new system kicks ass.
It really does.
It's smooth, and there's weapons everywhere to get, so I think it's all good. As far as like putting it on another system, I think they kind of made their point. Like, they didn't have to. They had the hardware they needed to pull this off. Like, the water looks better. Otherwise, so this game is kind of like semi-cell shaded, so resources are used in a really good way that, it's not that super taxing. It would look great in 4K or whatever the next system is going to project to, but
I've seen people play it in 4K, and it looks great. Like they've set up. I've seen people emulating it on their computers, and they're able to achieve 4K resolution on it. Because
It sounds like this was like, as far as putting this on another system, this was made to kind of undo the things people didn't like about the last one, and also expand upon it before they make the next one for the newest system. I think this was attached to the idea of the last game, and that's the whole reason they wanted to do it for this system.
this will like keep the Switch a playable system for a long time, because you can always go back and play this.
And
Or
you can
Breath
still
of the
play Breath of the
Wild.
Wild.
Breath
Yeah.
of the Wild too.
Well,
The most important people that I feel that Nintendo's really trying to make sure that they impress, like the kids. Like you have a
before we brought on that, you're talking about the next system. This is actually the first Zelda mainline game developed for the Switch, because Breath of the Wild was developed for the Wii U.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So Breath of the Wild on the Switch is a port.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about that. I
And
forgot
you're
about the
talking
Wii U.
about,
we all did.
So this is the
Wii
first.
Who?
This is the first
Wii U.
Switch
Exactly.
exclusive Breath of Zelda game.
It is.
Yeah.
Developed for it.
So yeah, that's a fair point for the Switch needed a game developed specifically on the
Do
Switch.
you think that with that point, do you think that they will port this over to the new system? I suppose it
I
depends
wouldn't.
on how the time frame, right?
Yeah,
They usually remaster something more before they upgrade it.
I would expect like some older remasters to kind of
Yeah.
they've had a flow of like older remasters, HD remasters being done before. So it's definitely in the realm to happen. Next system or system after that.
What would stop them from having this be a launch game for Switch 2?
Not having
You
a
see,
Switch
though,
2.
they're gonna start developing that port, and then they're gonna come up with these new ideas, and they're gonna be like, "Uh-oh, we just made a new game again."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
They'll do the same thing.
at this point, Breath of the Wild had DLC. I'm expecting this one to get a pass of DLC additions. Something.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
That'll be pretty regular. So yeah, there's still so much to look forward to. This game is still very new, and even though it's been out, whatever.
So, how's your kid like this? I'm curious to know that. I want to know how kids receive this compared to us adults who've grown up with playing these our whole lives.
And as a father, do you see this as having STEM value? That's been my biggest curiosity about kids playing this game. Like, is this gonna inspire some engineering?
I think it could. I maybe haven't seen a lot of. Well, I'll tell you that my son's interest was not the greatest attention span on it. And he got more impressed seeing like Zonai devices. Once I started progressing in the game to have a plethora of what's available of these different devices, because you find like gumball machine dispensers. Kind of littered across the map that you can like put a resource into and just get a random shoot of like 4 to 5 different specific ones in that are available in that thing. So you get drip fed these different Zonai devices, along with a lot of shrines that teach you mechanics of different Zonai devices as you pick these up. If it's a rocket, if it's wheels. But yeah, when my son saw all the Zonai devices, this is all he cared about. It was time to build stuff and do nothing else. Like, no interest in the story. He some interest in fighting and some combat, but really just like, Dad, can I play on your game and just build stuff?
And
Nice.
the game allows him to just build stuff and play around in the world and not move ahead in the storyline or like worry about enemies coming and destroying his stuff that he's making.
Oh, you got to worry about enemies coming to destroy your stuff.
Okay.
Unless you're like, there are a few save zones. Like if you're within a town limit,
Okay.
town area.
Sure. It's free for all.
Yeah.
And the game has a 24-hour system too. So then, like day and night comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it? What's
been
its
a lot of
time? What's
frustration.
its time thing, or is it actual 24-hour?
Oh no, it's got a in-game clock. It's something like 30 seconds is 5 minutes.
Okay.
So the clock goes in intervals of 5 minutes, but yeah, it's
Okay.
the days are fast.
C-dubs.
Very fast.
What do you have
Yes, sir.
for us? Do you have any questions for the masters of the Tears of the Kingdom?
Well, that was one I had just because I was curious to how quickly a day progresses in the game, because that's a different element in a lot of other games, like Majora's Mask specifically. I mean, that's game is a day. Like,
It is a
basically,
day and involves a lot
yeah.
of time travel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was curious. So
There's no
you
time
can-
travel.
Not
Oh,
in,
hold
no,
on.
I'm talking about
There's
that was
no-
in Majora's
in
Mask is
Majora's
a day.
Mask. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we thought they were talking about Tears of the Kingdom.
No.
Sorry.
So the vehicle, you can just make machines all the time,
Okay.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
No, I'm like, you can do this. Okay, so
At any
you could
time.
make a vehicle and just that's your fucking horse the whole time. Instead of a horse, you've got your vehicle.
Well, I've also
Okay,
got a
so-
few horses.
and horses as well. But I'm just saying, you
Like
don't have to.
you could take one of those fans, or a couple of those fans, and add a steering wheel onto it, and it's like a little hover machine for you.
Oh my god.
It's awesome.
I mean, there's
Amazing.
maybe a couple extra things. If you're in the sky, you can take out a glider that you can stand on, and then put on some, fans, a couple maybe rockets to help propel you, and put on like a steering wheel and fly around.
Fuck.
And
It's amazing.
Yeah, put a steering stick on anything.
Yeah, a lot of people, from what I understand, people barely use the horses because they go a lot faster on these devices that they create.
That's what I'd do. I'd just
yeah.
make devices. The
And
whole
then
time.
once
I
again,
was using the horse for a while, but I just finally finished figuring out how to build the vehicle I wanted, and now that's all I use because it's exactly how I wanted it to perform, and I had to learn how to basically build a rear differential.
wow.
Yeah.
Once again, once you have it created, in your system of abilities, you have a blueprint for it to be created just instantly for yourself.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up another. You guys were talking about how if we would upgrade this system to the next system or whatever. Sorry. I found or remastered someday. I found out recently because I'm behind on all this stuff that they'd remastered Link's Awakening again.
I was wondering
For
if
the
you had
Switch?
found out this.
Yes,
this news.
and it is beautiful. It's a very good remake. I've not played it, but I've watched a lot of videos on that too. And I think that's very interesting though that game is at now. This is the third port, or I guess remaster they've done on a whole new level, and I really like that they keep doing that with this beloved game of mine because it has such a good story that it's great to keep retelling it.
Yeah,
You know.
totally.
And a funny thing about that remaster, it has a really nice 3D cartoon style to it. And in this new Tears of the Kingdom, there's these treasure chests you find all over the game, and they have costumes from the previous Zelda games. Well,
Yeah.
the Link's Awakening costume turns you into a crazy-looking cartoon person
Like
from the
little Jimmy.
remaster of Link's Awakening.
Really?
Oh my
does.
god!
Cool.
It's like wearing
it
a
looks
mask.
goofy. It looks so goofy.
That's really cool.
So if-
Amazing.
If you've
Now-
been watching videos and you see a guy in a very strange face, that's what that is.
That's amazing. That's so good. Yeah, because that remastering is very beautiful. They did a good job putting it on the Switch and bringing interest back into that game. So that's if you like Zelda and you want to play this game that I'm going to keep giving you info about, and you don't want to get a Game Boy, you should definitely
you
get this
can.
on your Switch.
Yeah. Any
But,
other questions or concerns, C-Dubs, about this game?
Well, I was going to ask if you guys were interested in talking about the end.
The
Like-
end game.
What it leaves for the future of Zelda franchise or Link specifically his story.
Yeah.
There you go. If you guys don't want to talk about that, we don't have to. That's the only other thing I would ask as the person who's not
Boy,
playing.
this is a great time for me to leave because it looks like a little moon needs to go outside.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Well,
I
I have 200 hours and I actually haven't beat it yet.
oh, really?
Oh.
I don't know. Have you beat it, James?
I have completed the campaign, defeating the end boss.
Okay.
And after that,
I heard it's canon. Spoilers.
I don't know.
I heard it's canon. Someone spoiled it for me.
It's kinda
I was
canon.
so mad. I basically flushed it down the toilet.
Oh
'cause
my
how
God.
dare you tell me?
I've completed all of the memories, which, like in Breath of the Wild, they did a similar thing where you get the story through memory scenes. And this does the same thing, really focused on Zelda, who, like in Breath of the Wild, is missing through the duration of the game, but the story is told through her perspective, which is a very awesome point about modern Zelda. I can get more to later, but I don't remember where I was going with that. You
Well,
get
without
the-
spoiling too much,
yeah, I've done
there
all the
is time
memories.
travel in this story. Zelda
Okay.
gets transported back in time, And the crazy thing about the entire Zelda chronology is that she's basically sent back in time before the earliest we know, and then the game takes place in the latest era we know. So now this game,
okay, so it's the farthest of each other.
yeah, this game now spans the entire Zelda chronology,
Wow.
which is a wild premise. But it doesn't
Now-
stop getting crazy there. I won't reveal all the crazy stuff.
Okay.
This plot
Okay.
is bonkers.
Okay. That's what I want to know, because, I mean, you're talking about it goes over through the entire history. This one's what is this just a second part of the last one? That's what this story is based on. Are we in the fallen hero? Like, is this coming from another part of the story where, like you're saying, we're at the end? So
Yeah, Breath of the Wild takes place after all the games, and
Okay.
for some
and
reason
that's
they
the
use...
world post everything.
Yes.
Okay, so this is farther than that.
I don't
now we're
remember-
going the other way.
I don't remember which fallen or not fallen hero timeline that Breath of the Wild comes off of, but I know I've seen it put down somewhere. If you look up the Hyrule
Oh, man.
chronology,
Okay.
you'll find it.
Okay.
My hot take, I'm not necessarily a fan of Zelda timeline. I believe a lot
I have
of it
never
is...
I've never needed there to be one.
No, I think
Exactly.
a lot of it's retconned. However,
And-
that being said,
They I'm sorry. They will have a couple sequels and then they will start a brand new Zelda, right?
They normally don't even do sequels.
yeah, there's
Yeah,
never
yeah, I
been
mean,
sequels. It's just like another
Has there never been
telling.
sequels?
There have been. They
Yeah.
just jump around to different times usually.
A couple, I believe, 2 other games have direct sequels. Link to the Past got one on the 3DS, and Ocarina had a direct sequel on the 64 with Majora's Mask.
Okay.
But it's always a retelling of a legend, a story.
Okay. That's what I was
And,
wondering. Okay.
It was several iterations into the game that it seemed like they decided it was all on a similar timeline, actually happening, thousands, hundreds of years apart, this and that, which at the time seemed a little silly to me. I'd wager the guess that modern Zelda is, in a way, drawing off a lot of different parts of those timelines and correcting the timeline.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
because
and the whole timeline thing really started with fans. Like that was all fan theory
them
stuff that
trying to give
eventually-
a
And Nintendo basically adopted some stuff from that fan,
Yeah, what is
old fan theories.
what is Nintendo's official stance on the different timelines?
Well,
now?
they love timeline theory now. I think that's
Well,
pretty.
They have it set out in their
yeah. There's an
their
order
book.
that they have. I could actually pull it up, but because that's my favorite thing about technically in Link's Awakening is that it directly happens after a moment, but you can't reference anything in it because it's not technically happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's why any other game.
And then I had this dream.
So
in
is
the,
it,
well,
it-
that's the,
okay,
That's
is-
the other thing too.
is it like a Marvel timeline or is it like a Bubbleverse type of timeline? Like or is
They
it
also
just like
classify it in different parts of his
or
life.
is it like a straight timeline where there's just different Links and different Zeldas in the past and the future?
There's a sequence of games that goes from Skyward Sword to Ocarina of Time. After Ocarina of Time, there's the Fallen. There's Link loses to Ganon, and that's a series of games. And then there's Link defeats Ganon, and that's a series of games. And it all has to do with whether or not the Master Sword gets sealed, whether Ganon gets sealed or is allowed to continue its evil ways. And that's where it kind of breaks down for me, because those games aren't they don't thematically have like the feel of a Fallen World per se. They all have the feel of a Zelda game. So for me, the official chronology is not really an important part of enjoying the series.
No, I'm just wondering what their official stance is on it.
Well, they go by
They go by it and they are playing with it now.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
early
Yeah.
history.
That's a good way to put it. That they have accepted and have been working with that.
Yeah, they consider it now, which is interesting. It's how we got Skyward Sword. They were like directly gonna make the first game in the Zelda chronology.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's based off. There's the early history, which is Skyward Sword, Minish Cap, and Four Swords. Child timeline, which is Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Four Swords Adventures. The adult timeline, which is the Wind Waker, which I was actually I thought that was, but anyway, that's adult timeline, Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. And then Fallen Hero timeline is A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages, A Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, The Legend of Zelda, and The Adventure of Link. And then the end of Calamity is Age of Calamity, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. So those are the main chapters that they go by in the timeline.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
It can be a little convoluted if you're not.
It is.
They're connecting a lot of dots. Just
Yeah.
it's interesting fan stuff to look into for sure.
But not much more.
But again,
Maybe.
that's always been my favorite thing about, the Link's Awakening is that it is, in fact, so this gets misconceived. People are like, oh, it's Link's dream. It's not Link's dream. It's the whale's dream.
Yeah, the whale's dreaming.
You're in
The windfish.
the windfish's dream,
Yeah, they gotcha.
and it's having a nightmare, and you have to fight the nightmares to make it be able to wake up, because the nightmares want it to sleep forever so that they can exist in this world. But as soon as Link saves the day and wakes up the fish, he's no longer having a nightmare. Link gets brought back to reality, and then he has the memory to remember the world that never existed. And yeah, so also, did you guys know there's a secret ending to that?
To Link's Awakening?
To Link's Awakening, there's a secret ending, which is really sweet, and I'm kind of sad that it's the secret, but you have to not die. You ever seen that secret
Ever?
ending?
Not die
Of course,
ever.
I
You
have
can't die
seen
in the
the
game.
secret ending.
Huh?
Should we spoil the secret ending?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna, because
What
it's
is
the
it?
best part.
What is it?
So in the story, there's a girl that you're friends with who loves you in the game of Link's Awakening. I can't remember her name. It's like
Marin.
Marin. That's it. So she doesn't want to be on the island. She tells you, she's like, I have a wish, or I want, if I could be a seagull, I would fly away to visit all the other parts of the world. And later in the game, she tells you she has a wish and she's going to tell it to the fish and blah, blah, blah. And then she gets to, at one point, say her wish when she's up there. When you wake up and the fish flies over you to let you know that it was real but imaginary in his mind and you were there, whatever, the game ends. If you never died, the after credit scene is her singing the song with a seagull flying away.
Oh.
Meaning her wish got granted and she got to be a seagull and visit all of the other, because she made a deal with the windfish. Isn't that amazing?
That's so good.
That's so cute.
So many things tied up.
It's just beautiful. So anyway,
That's very
that's
nice.
why I
Very
love
hard
that
ending
game,
to
because
get.
you can't connect it to anything, because it was a fish's dream. Anything else is canon. This technically isn't canon.
Speaking of Easter eggs, are there any Easter eggs in? I mean, I suppose that's
Yeah.
a big game and
Well, I was saying
TOTK.
in ways that I think this incorporates a lot of callbacks to different Zelda games, and like maybe corrects the timeline, whatever. That's there's a lot of callbacks that that are hard to ignore.
what are a
Some
couple
obvious
good
ones, just maybe not Easter eggs per se, but
Or references at least.
Yeah, references. Or,
just the Sky Islands is a very big Skyward Sword thing. The depths being very reflective of the map. It's literally opposite of the elevation of your land map. So every place where there's mountains, those are like huge deep valleys in the depths. So it's a dark world, and we've seen that in a lot of other Zelda games, having a light world and a dark world, and that is very much ties into the whole lore of the Triforce even.
That's cool.
Those are some two big ones that I really like.
Eric,
You got any good ones, Eric?
Anything that you can think of?
Well, so there's also there's items hidden throughout which were like that Link's Awakening costume. They are throwback items. A lot of them were from Breath of the Wild. They were amiibo items in Breath of the Wild, but in this game, you just get to go find them in all these cool places. Besides that, it really is the thematic stuff, like James was saying. There's stuff you do in this game that harkens back to other Zelda games, and it's crazy that Breath of the Wild could have had them, but didn't. But just by the nature of them, I think, kind of reaching back for some content, like even things like this game has like a little plushie mini game, which calls back to some old plushie mini games in
you
the
do
handhelds.
Crane game in Link's Awakening.
I was just gonna say, like the crane game.
There's even those gumball machines are a lot like the figure machine from Minish Cap, and I believe they've had that kind of gumball machine gachapon style thing in other games. Yeah, it's a lot of really cool stuff.
So it's not full of references nonstop like again Link's Awakening, where it harkens to like every Nintendo game. It has
Like,
a
here's
little
a Bow
Yoshi
Wow.
stuffed animal. The
Oh.
Bow Wow has which is a
Ah.
what are they called? Chain chomps?
Yeah, the chain chomp
Yeah.
guy.
Chain chomp. There's all the bad guys are
Goombas
different
are in
versions
there.
of.
So they
Yep,
did.
they've got
There's
the-
one character that kind of has a Mario look to him, but
Yes.
they don't get too Nintendo referential. I've found, but I still have a lot to find, so maybe that'll
Okay.
be proven wrong.
Well, I mean,
later.
That also happened because they weren't really supposed to be making that game, so they were just throwing
Yeah.
in stuff to have fun.
Mhm.
Because that was another thing with that game, Link's Awakening. They weren't even supposed to be making it; they just did it for fun.
Do you guys
Yeah.
Do you guys think
Sorry.
that there will be there's still stuff that people have not found in this game?
I think that's not the answer is not zero, or I think there's a good chance of it. Is what I'm trying to say, because I also have like a good easy 200 hours plus thrown into this game. I have beat the campaign. I have seen all the memories. I have done all the shrines. I have done a lot of this game, and those Koroks, those little guys.
Yeah.
The little leaf men that you find them doing little puzzles, and the reward you get helps you increase your inventory. So you could carry more weapons, more shields, more swords. There's like 900 in Breath of the Wild. This one has 1,000. I've put in so much time. I've not even come across 200 of them yet.
Are
Oh my
you
God.
have you looked at any guide? Is there a full a guide?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
It
there's
takes a long time
there's
to
a
find
strategy
them
guide.
all, but
Oh.
there's a guide.
There was a lot of Korok puzzles in Breath of the Wild that, like, I had some people tell me how they solved them. That I had no idea that, like, doing that task was a puzzle. And just surprised, like, one in Breath of the Wild was like taking a horse and like having like little hurdles to jump over in a row. I don't know. Some places there's some set up in a row that if you do it, that's a Korok. I never knew that.
That's like old achievement things, like secret achievements, but now they're like in-game missions.
Yeah. And
yeah.
and it's been fun coming across like new Korok puzzles in this one, and some of them that have stumped me. And like I see one that's like red arrows pointing at things. I don't know what to do there.
Oh, you want me to tell you about that?
Um,
There's 3 of them, and they all triangulate. So you have to
Yeah.
stand in the middle of the 3 arrows.
And just stand there.
That's yep. A little leaves will appear, and you'll be like, "Oh, I'm staying in the right place." and
Oh
you can
my
hit A,
goodness.
And yep, that's it.
So he's played for that long and he's never stood there. That's
Yeah,
that's just
I-
a-
Well,
well,
there you go.
yeah,
Trying
that's the thing. You
things.
know, you the way you discover these things and solve them, and then the thing is, There is not a single puzzle in this game that's a one-off. If you find a Korok puzzle or there's these other style of puzzles, you should start looking for that everywhere in the world
Exactly.
because
Yep.
that's another copy
Interesting.
of that puzzle.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that, I mean, I'm also over 200 hours in, and just like 2 days ago, I found another one of those patterns. I was like in a certain area, and I found this hollow tree, and I found treasure in there, and I was like, oh my god, that's good treasure. Like, then I looked at the map and realized this style of tree is all over the place. I just haven't been looking in them.
Oh.
So that was another 20 hours.
I've had that experience of finding neat things on the map, especially with sky islands being particular shapes, and then starting to notice, hey, this means shrine here. This means device dispenser here. And when those things click, it's really neat. I've had a lot of times kind of feeling humbled by things, at how simple they can be to solve when I'm almost overthinking things automatically. And so, like, I can hit these puzzles and just be trying to do something way too complex or convoluted or complicated. And man, I've spent a lot of times butting my head against the wall on some pretty easy stuff, man. It's almost embarrassing.
Sometimes it's just that you have an idea that you know will work, and you just
Just
sit
not
there and build and build and build, and it's just like you iterate. Even though just a parallel thinking, you could get to an idea that will work a little faster, but you want to get the idea you had to work, and you can get it to work.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So I like that they keep, the whole idea of the puzzles originally was that you just have to figure out or get the thing to make it work. Now there are so many options that you can trick yourself into thinking like it's got to be this
Absolutely.
combination. It's not, you're not there yet, or it's this other, like that's great because the games used to be very, you learn the thing is now important for the next series of the game, which is common trait in many games. But like getting the Pegasus boot, well, you didn't need it before that, but now you need it every time after it, So the game is so well done in its use of mechanics for its storytelling purposes and puzzle solving purposes. Just that's kind of the beauty, I think, of a Zelda game. Is doing that. Like it's a puzzle game. There's plenty of different types of puzzle games, but not as many make you think or teach you to think a different way as Zelda does.
Sure. So, like Tears of the Kingdom, we could probably talk about it just as long as we could play it, which, you said you had 200 hours in it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we do need to wrap up things at some point.
I got a friend who is still literally playing Breath of the Wild up until Tears of the Kingdom came out.
Holy cow.
Yep.
Wow. Well, I
And-
thought before we leave,
5 years.
Eric, I know you have some just Zelda-related questions you wanted to ask everyone. Do you want to ask us those before we end the show?
Well, okay.
Do
Oh,
we have
sorry.
time? I mean, we can end the show. Just usual stuff.
Well,
We kinda went over our
I
favorite
was going to say
games.
that I talked to the head of FuzzJockRadio's legal department,
Oh, man.
and I got
What?
Oh, wait. How does this song go again? Oh, yeah.
No way they loaned us this?
Yeah. So this is just for fun. It's nothing official since this is just the special episode.
It is special.
And so we're not going to keep track of points. If you want to keep track of points at home, it's all up to you. But
Do
this
not
is
email us the results. We don't want to know.
Fuzzy Memory Trivia. This is Fuzzy Memory Trivia. This is when I ask the Hess a question, and then they answer the question with an answer. And it can be incorrect, or if it's wrong, they get a point, and if it's not wrong, they don't get a point, or we're not keeping track. So, and it's so ready, guys?
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready.
The original The Legend of Zelda for the NES, which enemy drops the magical sword when defeated?
This is Lionel.
Shadow Link.
It's a misconception.
Mm.
The magical sword isn't dropped by an enemy,
Oh, you
but
buy it.
instead can be found
You get
in a
it-
hidden
you get
cave
in the
beneath
cave.
a tombstone in the graveyard.
And it says it's not safe to go out there alone.
Oh, careful. What is the unique trademark characteristic of Link's appearance that was the result of a game design limitation in The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past?
His pink hair.
Left-handed.
Correct.
He's left-handed.
Link's pink hair. Due to palette limitations on the SNES, Link's hair was colored pink in this game as a compromise. On the way to which main dungeon do you have to detour through the ice caverns in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time?
Jabu's Zora's Domain?
The Water Temple. The ice caverns are found
Oh,
in
that's
Zora's
right.
Fountain.
Oh, yeah.
And Link must traverse through them to acquire the iron boots and blue fire necessary
Yep.
for the Water Temple. What is the name of the controversial timeline split theory that attempts to reconcile the events of all the games in the Legend of Zelda franchise?
The Fallen Hero.
The Calamity.
The Legend of Zelda timeline theory, which suggests there are 3 alternate timelines: the Child Link timeline, the Adult Link timeline, and the Defeated Hero timeline. Okay.
We talked about that a little bit.
Well, now it's expanded upon. I don't know.
In the
We all get points.
Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, how many real-world minutes does it take for 3 in-game days to pass without using any songs to manipulate time?
An hour.
It takes 54 minutes for
man.
3 in-game days. Yeah.
Wow.
What is the name of the sage that Link must awaken in the Earth Temple in The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker?
Darunia.
I thought it was Andy.
Meldy,
Oh,
the young
Mel-
Rito
it's
girl
the-
who is also a
Medley.
descendant of Zora sage Laruda.
It's the bird girl.
Yeah. Va Meadow is named after her.
She plays a harp.
Who composed the original theme for The Legend of Zelda, which has been used in various forms throughout the series?
Oh, man.
Johnson would know this.
Koji
he would.
Kondo.
Kondo.
Yeah, Kondo. Composed the iconic theme for The Legend of Zelda.
That's a good one.
I think the puppy needs to go.
All right.
Puppy.
Okay. Well, I've got one for you.
Okay.
Shit. What's the first instance of the ocarina?
Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Or is it Link's Awakening?
No, Link's Awakening is after.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I was trying to trick you into saying that. Because I happen to only have information about that.
It was called the Magic Flute back then.
Okay,
Yes.
and that was your...
Oh, wait. How does this song go again? Oh, yeah.
So here we are, guys. We're at the end of the episode. I
did
mean, we
it.
can keep going, but I need to go to bed at some point.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
talked about Zelda for a long time. Contracts were obligated. We did it. Just like they did it by making a brand new Zelda game using the same map.
Well,
big.
I am personally ready for this modern Zelda to be a trilogy.
I'm ready for
that's-
this podcast to become a trilogy.
Yeah. I would love
Trilogy
for
this
this to be a
podcast. Let's
trilogy.
Triforce this podcast.
There's not been a lot of Triforce going on. You got to throw a third part in.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Do
that'd
it.
be cool. I mean, then we can, it'll give us more to talk about for Zelda games. you know.
We'll do it.
Which, brings me to...
Oh my.
We all know what that sound means.
I talked to the
what
head.
this jingle is. It's time for
We're cleared. We're cleared for this.
We're clear for this one too. So the
you and
first
that guy are
question of the
tight.
week is: we will absolutely do like another Zelda podcast at some point, another episode. But
Ooh, I like that.
the first question of the week this week is: if we do another game, like if we do another video game for this type of theme of a podcast episode, what would your other game that you would want to talk about for a full episode be? C-dubs.
Bioshock.
Eric.
I'm stuck between either Metroid Dread because they also knocked it out.
No,
of the
we
park
don't.
with
We
that.
don't.
No, that's Metroid.
We don't talk about what
But
our
we already
answer
talked about
is.
Nintendo.
Metroid Dread or okay,
Elder
Or what?
Scrolls.
Elder Scrolls. Okay, and Jameis.
Probably just AEW Fight Forever.
And
There you
Fuzzy, Doom. And that was your...
Question of the week.
Oh, no, I didn't get into that. Approved. Okay. So that was our Fuzz question of the week. We may
did it.
come back at some point and talk about more video games for a special episode.
Yeah, don't twist my arm.
Anything? Any last words? Any
big
words of
sports guy.
wisdom? How should we end this?
See ya.
Everyone say their favorite weapon in Zelda.
Beloved regular Eric Blake. I just want to thank you all for doing this.
Yeah. This
is wonderful.
It was fun.
Love you all.
Hook shot.
We will see you guys in
Master Sword.
We'll see you guys in the future.
Ocarina.
Me, princess? Well, excuse me, princess.
Thank you for tuning in. If you would like to support, head on over to our shop, FuzzTalkShop.com. That's FuzzTalkShop.com. Buy yourself a hoodie or t-shirt. We even have mugs and stickers. From all of us over at Fuzz Talk Radio, we appreciate your support.